Welcome to the debate. So today we're looking at the source material, The Art of Soulful Living. It offers this comprehensive framework for achieving inner peace, but it also presents a pretty profound philosophical tension.
Mm-hmm.
And the core question for us is this: is true peace built through active self-management and daily control, the things laid out in the practice, or does it require a more foundational acceptance and surrender, which is the core of the foundation? I'm going to argue that conscious control and disciplined daily practice are really the primary engines of growth here.
And I'll be arguing the opposite. That foundational surrender is, well, it's the non-negotiable prerequisite. I mean, without first accepting your path, any attempt at self-management is just rearranging deck chairs on the ego's sinking ship.
I think the guide's actual structure supports agency, though. Transformation is shown to be achieved through direct, repeatable action. The text specifically gives us Principle 1, control and avoid negative thoughts, and then Principle 2, if you act negatively, reflect immediately. The material even promises this focus can, quote, completely transform your life and character within 3 years. That's a very specific, measurable outcome that, to me, really underscores the power of directed effort.
I just come at it from a different way. Yes, control is in the practice, but the entire system is grounded in the foundation, accepting your path. And that foundation is demanding. It requires surrendering the ego, which the text basically defines as self-reliance, to a higher power for strength. It explicitly notes that miracles happen when you stop relying on ego and entrust yourself. So for me, true growth isn't achieved by controlling the immediate thought, but by fundamentally accepting adversity, conflict, and failure as lessons for your soul's growth. The root has to exist before the practice can be effective.
Sure, your point on acceptance as a prerequisite is strong, but it raises the question of the how. If the material says we should accept adversity, that doesn't mean we have to passively embrace the immediate, habitual negative reaction to it. We control the internal processing of the external event. Principle 1 isn't about denying the event. It's about preventing the lesson from being hijacked by all that negative emotional energy. That control is the necessary discipline.
Okay, but hold on. If the foundation mandates we see adversity as a lesson for the soul's growth, then doesn't actively trying to avoid negative thoughts about that adversity, doesn't that fundamentally interfere with the process of receiving the lesson? You risk suppressing the very signal that's supposed to reveal the deeper truth. And this just brings us right back to the ego. If we're asked to surrender the ego, how can these control practices even function when the desire to manage yourself, to execute Principle 1, is so often an expression of the ego itself?
I'm not convinced that self-control has to be an expression of the ego. In fact, I think the practice gives us the explicit tool to overcome it. Principle 2, if you act negatively, reflect immediately. That's the mechanism for self-correction. Reflection is the light that identifies the ego's influence and limits it. It's not self-management, it's self-transcendence through discipline. And we see this pragmatic approach in the source's goal setting, the 80% rule.
That shift to the 80% rule is revealing. The text tells us to aim for a better life, not a perfect one, saying that 80% is enough to live fully and progress. But that suggests inner peace is an actively managed project. Why is this specific measurement even necessary if true trust is supposed to be achieved through complete surrender?
It's necessary because it defines a sustainable effort. The 80% rule acknowledges that trying for 100% control leads to the very suffering the material warns us against. It's a mechanism of, let's call it, managed aspiration. We use discipline to get to 80% mastery. And that 20% we can't control, well, that's precisely where the foundational acceptance comes in. It dictates the limits of our agency, letting us actively build character without burning out on perfectionism.
Yet, setting a controlled, measured goal, like 80%, still seems to indicate a reliance on self-determination, rather than fully trusting that greater force. If foundational surrender is truly achieved, the whole measurement of 80% versus 100% should become irrelevant because the anxiety around imperfection would have been fundamentally removed. Seeking any measured outcome suggests a conditional acceptance of your path.
Ultimately, the transformation timeline the 3 years and the clear daily steps, show that peace is actively built through discipline. The guide prioritizes action that leads to measurable results.
And I'd say that without that initial complete surrender of the ego, any amount of daily discipline is just addressing surface-level symptoms. Inner peace is unlocked, not built, and it's unlocked through foundational acceptance.
The material really does expertly weave together the forces of agency and destiny, and it leaves us to explore that profound interplay between active self-control and foundational acceptance as the true source of spiritual growth.